I'm gonna share something. For me, it's quite fun. And it has to do with video games and whatnot. So I call it participatory intelligence in smart city. And the whole motivation to present it within this framework is for us to think about, as we are moving to increase automation, how can we reinstate human agency within this process? So we're not oblivion, but we're actually changing our role in this future. So a little bit about me. My name is Provides, and I graduated sometime long time ago from CHK, and then I did my master in Germany because I was such a bad student. And afterwards, I started my research journey actually in Russia, where I first got into ideas like blockchain, Web3, and stuff. That was like before the pandemic. And afterwards, I went to the Bartlett. I stayed as a lecturer. And now I'm just doing my PhD at CUHK, so it's like back in full circle. A lot of the research that I've done also aggregate during my time at the Bartlett, where I really look into artificial intelligence and also cybernetic system to try and see where did we start in history and where we would go in the future. So this is actually from one of the research output that trace all the way back to the post-war era, when a lot of scientists after the war, they have a lot of advancement in controlling communication systems, including anti-fire control, which has to do with how the shooter, which is the human, and the machine aligns themselves in a data feedback process. And so all of that knowledge from 80 years ago actually accumulate to what we have today, which we can see are two big trends. One is intelligence as a digital system, and the other one is intelligence as a physical system. And today I will talk a little bit about both and my attempt to localize that within a Hong Kong context to bring it down from high tech to more democratized, low tech, but community centered approach. And we will start with metaverse from 2019. So I'm sure everyone has heard a lot about like Web2, Web3, and whatnot. So I keep asking myself, what does it mean that we are switching from Web2 to 3? Does it only mean that we get one more layer of data aggregation, or does it actually change the way we interact in space? So my own understanding is that in Web2, it's not just two-way communication, but it's also very two-dimensional. But in Web3, it's not just that we can produce content and generate income from that content, but it's also that these content are very three-dimensional. And this is what I see in the opportunity of metaverse, that it's very participatory, it's very social, but at the same time, it's very spatial as a technology, which is different from the rest. Just to quickly define it, metaverse, it's not exactly a virtual reality, but it leverages a virtual reality technology so that computers like NPC and humans can interact. So it's a networked virtual space. If anyone one of you like to see movie, this is what I always show my students at the Bartlett. This is like the metaverse par excellence because it shows exactly this future where space can change, rotate, shape itself. You have your own avatar. You can actually live in this world. But as much as we kind of fantasize this as one of the future, I don't think in architecture this means that we're only building a digital world, but that this digital interaction can help inform our physical worlds. And as much as the technology seems like, a big thing, but actually its trend has been going down in the past 5 years, because the more you work with metaverse, the more you realize there's nothing more to it than what architects want, which is just to build and create things. And a lot of companies struggle with the medium of the headset itself, that it's very hard to democratize. And also there is all these blockchain guys who try to make virtual architecture as another form of investment. So it's just to diversify their risk portfolio for companies, but it's not actually creating real value for society, which is why even for Decentraland, a lot of their projects are also not as good in return payment as it was expected. But if we look to an adjacent field, any of you who play video games will know this. This is 孙悟空. So it's one of the hottest video game right now. I tried to play it. I can't even get through like the first big boss. So it's so difficult, but you can see that three-dimensional technology is so advanced right now that this is like 3 times cheaper than what you would get in as a game made by the US. And so you can definitely see the potential of 3D tech being super cheap, super democratized, and maybe in the future, half of the people on Earth would know something about three-dimensional tech. And if you actually look into video game, the pandemic has turned all industry down except video game. There are 3 billion users. And in the future, we can expect more because my generation, I grew up in video game. And soon we are going to be the 中老的 issue of society. So everyone literally knows how to play video game. And it's actually not such a far future because we have already passed the revenue of music plus movie and double that market, like from 5 years ago. And if we look at the biggest 10 tech company right now, 7 of them are working with games. If you go into Apple Store, you'll actually see there's 2 tab. One is arcade, one is game out of 5 tab. And it's not just about money because everything you see from the training of artificial intelligence to GPU to digital twin simulation, metaverse, AR, VR on a phone, cloud services, compute, all of them has something to do with 3D tech. And so what I see opportunity in here is that we have a chance to virtual placemaking. Like people play League of Legends and they've made lifelong friends. They've played Battleground, which is pug like sekkai, and they've made girlfriends and boyfriends. So this is the sort of placemaking that we've always been seeing as architect, but now we can see the agency of physical space is slipping away to online. And how can we actually make use of this in our field? So just a quick summary, the metaverse is valuable not because we can buy some virtual land. It's valuable because it's a participatory form of recreation that is often socially significant. So it's a participatory form of learning. And you do not play a video game by reading instructions. You play a video game through trial and error. And this is the opportunity I see with video game. And actually all over the world right now, from UN habitats to like Bartlett and in South America, you see a lot of projects that use Minecraft and other types of modular-based sandbox game to crowdsource community input in how you can redesign public spaces. And many of them are being built right now. And this idea actually goes back to the 1970s when Nicholas Negroponte first theorized that you can use your finger to touch a monitor, select the spaces that you like, and this being built by robots. And so if Adam is working on the robotic part, then I'm working on the digital counterpart where you can use your finger to try and build your desired community space. But this is where my research comes in, because what's challenging about participatory design isn't the technology itself. It's actually what defines active contribution. That if we do not have a proper engagement pipeline, we will actually reproduce the marginalized communities that are currently not at the decision-making table. And these include lower income individuals, older adult, youth, people with disabilities, and so on. And to bridge this expertise gap in public participation, because we know it takes at least 10 years to train a professional architect in Hong Kong, how can we actually bridge the gap between the professionalism with citizen day-to-day insight? And so this is why I went into public housing to actually work with residents and test my theory. So this is the kind of community that we are forecasting here, that in 20-something years' time, most of us in this room will be retired, and 1/3 of Hong Kong will be retired, which means that we're facing a future of rapid aging, but at the same time, rapid digitalization. On top of that, we actually have 50% of secondary school students exhibit anxiety symptoms. As many as 1.7 million people suffer from diagnosable mental health problem, and 1 in 7 suffer from common mental disorder. So this is the future that we're stepping into if we do not do something right now to change our urban spaces. And we need spaces where people can come together, get to know each other, bridge our polarized opinion, and actually learn to work together. So with that as the context, I will show a little bit about what my tests were. So I bring older adult and youth together, and I try to design a metaverse system, not exactly a video game because there's no rules in the system, but more like designing a modular kit apart where you can choose modular or modular integrated components and then assemble them in a virtual space. And there's no right or wrong in here because everything is about trial and experiment. We've tried with VR headset, we've tried with computer format, we've tried with ways that communities can customize more easily. But technology in the past 5 years has changed so much. So the platform that I first used 5 years ago is now closed after their 3-year startup cycle. But many more companies opened up. So every time I have to migrate my data, but all of my data is based on an open structure format, which means that it can easily migrate anywhere. And I do see that as the future. I'll show a sample of the latest design outcome. So this one was quite special because the community actually looked back into what does it mean by Chinese culture, and does Hong Kong mean that we build Chinese culture, or do we mean that we build globalized culture? What is the architectural identity for us today? And they also realized that a lot of the old furniture actually in Hong Kong just get thrown directly into waste because we have no effective ways of actually upcycling them. So the inspiration was that if we can upcycle neighborhood waste on the spot, then we don't have to ship everything to Satao and then like dump it overnight. And so we identify this public housing and we work with residents there to see what are the opportunities that we can rethink community space in there. And you can see they're quite creative. They wanted a companion tea house, which is like elderly companion, but like a Chinese tea house. They also want like a play hub where they can learn about Web3 technology. They don't want to have like a health center because they think they're not sick, but they want a well-being campus. Of course, they also want things like community food hall, a market where they can mingle, and so on. This is obviously generated using Midjourney, so like a very popular generative AI image platform right now. And the whole key was how we can help citizens articulate their needs into text, and that text acts as prompt into the platform, and then generate a lot of images in no time. And afterwards, based on the inspiration image, we also teach them how to put together the architectural space in metaverse. So this is a 3-dimensional model based on standardized components. And this component can also be customized according to procurement catalog and stuff like that. This was a digital twin scanned of the local community center, and afterwards rethink how we can decorate that as like a wellness hub. And within that, we also teach them some Photoshop so they can like quickly collage. It wasn't the best quality, but you kind of see the vision they have where older adult really want an interaction with youth, and they actually wanted to learn about computers and not get forgotten. Other groups would also try to combine 3D visualization with AI images to generate more precise visualization. And then, for instance, they would really want a space where there are small children playing next to them, elderly can like sit and drink tea. They can get their groceries and then sit together and talk about what food they can cook. Something very basic, but very everyday. But what makes quality urban design is the fulfillment of this leveling space where people can spontaneously interact and make a network of mutual aid communities. But of course, in the process, we also generated a lot of what we thought was failing images that didn't mean anything. But those actually also intrigued them. They think it's very interesting and it's something that they haven't seen before. So we decided to actually prototype them. And we actually collected all of the neighborhood waste in that housing. But it's actually very difficult because if you leave the wood outside for too long, then if there's a rain, it's all ruined. So we are actually by the phone 24/7. If a resident call us, they see wood, then we immediately go there and collect the wood and put it in the garage. And we also introduce them to CNC technology. So these are the public housing residents, and then they work together to use CNC instead of the wood workshop, which can impose risk. And we also work with them to make a heat shrink plastic joint. So we didn't use any screw because we realized that from the upcycling process, nail guns is our biggest enemy. Like we have to remove all of the nails from the waste furniture one by one. And that was over 2,000 pieces of nails. But we have a whole lot of residents to work with us. So we managed to remove them. They actually taught me how to remove them. And so we designed, this was made with a waste plastic bottle. You see all of the joinery was plastic bottles that got curled up in the mortise joint. And then we apply heat to it. So then the plastic strings and it grabs hold to the wood. And it's actually quite firm. If you come to CHK, you're welcome to try out. So the whole pattern is made by CNC. So these were some of the final outputs. As we can see, even with a very low tech type of situation, we are able to make something together. And just from reflecting with local community, they think that in the process, what they learned so much was to work with people of different age group. So for instance, older adult from the last generation, they tend to complete everything very early, and then they would wait for your message. But youth tend to complete things last minute. So in the process, we actually had some team in some sort of argument and stuff because of this collaboration issues. But actually these insights help us understand in the future, where in a workspace, 1/3 of the people might be older adults. Everyone might be working with technology. This is not far. It's like 10, 20 years from now. This is what our office would look like. And these are the tension that would be created. And I think what I learned from the study is how we can actually mitigate these problems. And finally, of course, we go back into the community to try to adjust the design, whether the seat heights are good, the ergonomics are good, and we will refine them in the next stage. So finally, I just wanted to reflect on what it really means. As a researcher, these are actually more important than the design for me. What this graph actually tells is how different age group work together. So if you only have youth, they are super hyperactive. They're very happy and they organize themselves in their work. So you can see from the first graph that some of the groups hit top performance throughout the entire 3 hours. However, some group will have really huge performance fluctuation. So if you only have one age group, it's kind of difficult to control their performance. If you have two age group, it's even worse. None of the teams hit top performance. And usually after 20 minutes, they stop talking to each other. Imagine you working with your mom and dad or your mom and dad working with you, that type of situation. But finally, 3 age group, yeah, of course, all of the performance are more stable, but we have to look into why the performance was stable. Because most of the time, older adults aren't actually in a virtual reality headset all the time. It's not possible. But what they actually contribute is the need for the other age group to actually translate the different culture into the coherent design. For instance, youth would propose something super trendy, entertaining, like a Tinder platform for older adults. But then older adults actually want something more practical, like they want a market with cheap goods. And in the effort to synthesize such diverse view, all of the team has to concentrate, and even the experience actually increase. And the third thing is probably also something that is very important for future work environment is how we can actually leverage different modes of communication on the same desk. So for instance, if you work in group of 3, one participant would use the AI to generate image, someone who is very good at articulating their thoughts, someone who is very good with having a vision. And then the second participant would build that in a metaverse. And the third one would actually review the design in virtual reality and get responses in real time. So this is one of the setup that I find the most effective, but of course, there's always more. And finally, and perhaps the most architectural thing, is how we can discretize a building into component, use the same component no matter if it's in a BIM environment or the video game environment or in the metaverse environment, and be able to go from co-creation, design production, tendering, all the way to fabrication. It's one of my dreams. It's a dream that's quite far from what we have right now. But obviously, what we find is that if we use the more modernist approach, like Le Corbusier way of doing architectural components, a participant would require certain level of architectural knowledge to engage. Obviously, they at least need to study 3 years of bachelor to be able to understand how to put a stair and a slab and a column together. If you use modular integrated construction, it's way easier and it takes less time because all they do is pick a box and but the outcome is quite homogenized and it's very hard to innovate beyond the 3-meter span. And I think even if we're an architect, the same constraint will apply to us. And finally, there's also the Lego way of doing the part system design. It's very easy to engage because a 3-year-old can build something with a Lego, but it's very hard to ensure the quality because the Lego pieces can end up very bad. So as a researcher, I don't have one solution to offer, but I think for different projects that require different ways of building, I will continue to diversify the option that there is. Okay, I'll use 5 minutes to quickly go through. So where would this future bring me? And why I call this intelligence? It's because in the smart city, we actually only do smart, which is a network of control and sensory element. It gives very quick responses, but it only reacts to local issues. An intelligent system is one that can perceive its environment, process the information, and make decisions based on that data, and is able to make longer-term issue. Think of this, the smart system as the reflex on your arm. If you sense heat, you'll retract, but that's all it does without a brain. And so you would need a brain to actually ensure that everything runs smooth in the long run. But intelligence isn't just artificial. We've also got biological, we've got collective intelligence like a flock system of birds, and we've got human intelligence. And if we want to achieve true participation, that we should be able to integrate them in a decision-making process. For instance, slime molds, what you see as the biological intelligence, they are really good at finding the shortest path between nutrients. And actually, Japan government used it to simulate a railway system to find the most optimum parts between cities. Artificial intelligence, now we use it to generate floor plan, but what does that plan tell us? And if it's not propagating what it see in the database, how can we innovate beyond that? Collective intelligence is more along the line of what I was doing. So if you're able to discretize a system, you're able to automate it with robotics, and you're able to crowdsource with modular way of thinking. And finally, we have human intelligence. I don't think we should forget our education, more traditional classical as an architectural designer. How we synthesize these is actually the biggest challenge. And so we just got accepted into the Biennale for this year. And this is where I'm very privileged to work with my team members to try and test how we can synthesize these into a participatory intelligence, including high tech in sustainable design, low tech in community engagement, and finally, the most important part, which is the modularity. So these are some of the fabrication we made at the, so Bartlett has like its own robotic fabrication lab, and these were some of the precedents that Yao worked with her colleagues at the lab. And so we tried to translate these modular components into a larger installation input. It's work in progress, so I can't show the whole thing, but what you can expect is that we can co-design bio-inspired modules using a voxelized data format to try and tailor it to an architectural topology. We can 3D print that directly with biodegradable material, and then we will assemble them with citizens on site. And I hope that this project would be a very prelim demonstration of how we can build and design in the future. And if anyone's interested, make sure to follow the Biennale news. Final takeaway. The 5 tenets I always stick to as a participating intelligence: to actively involve diverse stakeholder in problem solving, to recognize that intelligence is not just about cognitive or computational capacity in isolation, but it should bring context-aware solution through collaboration. And it's important to note that it's not just about human thinking, but non-human as well, including how we can learn from nature and also from computational intelligence. And fourth, and most important, if we're not doing this for equality, diversity, and inclusion, I don't know what's the point of me doing all of this. So that's, I think, is the most important tenet. And finally, I think we definitely should reject a universalist ideal of what constitutes participation, because participation in Scandinavia would be super different from participation in Hong Kong. And it's only through action-based research study that we're able to understand how to localize those efforts. Yeah, so this is my aspiration. In a smart city future characterized by growing digitalization, I think Hong Kong has the potential to lead the dialogue on intelligent city, not just smart city, because we have one of the highest literacy rate in the world. We have high computer ownership. We are ranked 4th in biodiversity in terms of the world city, and we have super high quality infrastructure. So I hope we can all work together to build not just efficient, but also an empathetic and livable city, especially in 20 years when we retire, we have to listen to the new generation. And we don't want them to just be smart and efficient. We also want them to be empathetic. So with that, I will leave you to it. Oh, also a small advertising. I'll be teaching a very, very simple teaser AI course with HKIA, I think in 2 months. So if anyone's interested to like come and try stuff with me, welcome to join.
Okay, thank you so much.